Hit record. Welcome to Wednesday of week 6. Not that many announcements today, but I wanted to try and be organized. First of all, our quiz. I rolled my 20-sided die ahead of time and got numbers 8 and 9 on 5A and number 4 on 5B. So I've actually made up the quiz on the second page of our Jamboard today. So if you want to go to the normal Jamboard link and look at the second page, you can even get this done during class if you're polite about it and not have to worry about that. I will try and remember to leave 10 minutes of time at the end, but you can peek ahead. Okay, don't get distracted by it now though. Pay attention to announcements. So second announcements, a reminder that during this time before a midterm, if you don't normally, where is it? There. Subscribe to the Get Help forum, then turn it on, perhaps. It's a good suggestion. You go up here to the gear and you can say, subscribe to this forum. Your choices look different than mine as a student. But anyway, then you can ask questions with add a new discussion topic and other people will see them, since there is never a case in a math class where only one person has that question. And you would also, if you subscribe, see all of the answers that myself or other people give to the questions that your classmates ask. So that would help you get answers to things that you are probably curious about too. Again, because people tend to group up and have the same questions. So if you haven't been subscribed to that, because who wants more stuff in your email and it's not that active anyway, then my suggestion is to strongly consider subscribing at least until the midterm happens and use that instead of just emailing me directly when you have questions on practice tests or things. A question, we have a page with only the achievements and they're sorted by week, even though it says that it doesn't matter what week you do them in. Would it be better to sort them by color to make it easier to see if somebody has done 3 of this many color or that many color? I see 2 nods. Okay.
I think that makes sense with the color.
Yeah, I like that idea too.
Okay, so I will put a note for me. Yes, I will try and get that done. That shouldn't take me too long. I mentioned a story about chinchilla grief in my last email. Do you want to hear that story or should we just do more math?
Let's hear it.
Yes, I do. It was so touching.
Stop the recording. No, I'm not I'm gonna pause it. Okay, schedule more study groups. There was a problem on Monday that Monday afternoons are some of my busy afternoons. And was it Eli and Ashley scheduled a study group? I think it was. And I said, I will send out an email and let everyone know. And by the time I was able to actually send out the email, it was 8 o'clock or something. You had less than an hour to get with that in the schedule. So that wasn't a good job of me helping with their study group. So if anyone wants to schedule more study groups, then let's do that right now while we're all here and not wait till rely on me to send emails after class, because that doesn't always work as well, especially if you pick something today.
Yeah, Eli and I were talking Monday with Julie, and I think unless plans changed with them, I think we were going to do another study group tonight at 10 with the Zoom link.
That
Right.
sounds good to me. I'll be there.
Okay, good.
What time on Monday?
Or tonight?
Tonight at 10. We haven't scheduled anything for Monday right now.
Okay, sounds good.
Anyone who wants to do anything in the morning, that would work best because I haven't been able to make the times at like 10 because I'm not a night owl. So if anyone wants to do anything in the mornings, I'm available. Just let me know.
Morning. I prefer morning to Catherine. So I don't, would tomorrow morning or Friday morning work for you?
I'm very available in the morning, so we can do tomorrow and Friday if you'd like. I'm probably gonna need both days with this quiz or test next week.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Do you want to just plan for Thursday and Friday at like 10?
Sure. And if you want my email, or do you want to just do it on this link?
Yeah, I'll just send you in a private message my email and we can communicate as far as times because I just remembered I have something Thursday at 10, so that won't work.
Can I put in chat Thursday, 10 a.m. then?
Yeah, preferably Friday at 10 a.m. works for me, but
Friday, okay,
whatever.
Friday, 10 a.m. Sounds like at least 2 people will be there Friday. The last thing I wanted to mention is the only time I use the Zoom room outside of class is I meet with a kind of weekly high school reunion group Saturday mornings. So Julie jumped by and scheduled something with someone Saturday morning, and I was there with a bunch of strangers. So we just went off to a different breakout room. That wasn't a problem. But don't be too surprised if you pick Saturday morning and I have to send my friends to a breakout room so you get the main room. Okay, any other study groups? 2 is good. Are we going to have a reunion? I don't know. We have to like meet in person first, right? Things are extra challenging this year. Okay, last announcement, if we're done with study group ideas. In the planning what to do for next term thing that we went over, is there any part of this that would be helpful for your midterm studying if I got some better notes on the website? Any topics that are your nemesis other than the standard deviation, which we just need to talk more about?
So I'm kind of about the typical. What is that typical with those shapes?
Don't worry about that.
Okay.
That's a segue we use in Math 25. It's not
Okay.
an important part of 105. Okay, then I will just see what questions you send either to me personally or they get help forum. And if I have some time to work on the website, I will base it on that. Okay, any other questions? Issues with the website, issues with the homework? No. Okay, so page 2 has our quiz. Again, don't get too distracted by that, but you could be working on that if you're bored. I might do too many examples of standard deviation for some people to make everyone else happy. Oh, I guess I should remind you, if you open up week 6, then you have 2 nice formatted boxes, the to-do list for the week and the to-do list, just reminders about how to study for the test. There's extra stuff. Paula did a better job last term with her second test for how to do more review. So practice tests are, of course, the most identical to what the midterm will look like, but that doesn't mean a more robust review is not a good idea. Also, a reminder, no one has sent me practice tests yet, since that's what counts as homework this week. And you don't have to finish all of the problems. So there's 27 problems. If you just sit down for half an hour and get through 12 of them, and that was what I got done that time, then that's great. Just either send me that photo or report that to me. You don't have to actually finish all 27 to count as a homework. And I guess I should say also that it's usually wrong to sit down and try and do all 27. That if I was practicing something that had a lot of different steps, I would practice just the first few steps and do that again and again until I got very good at those. And then I might do the next few steps and practice those again and again until I got good at them. And then I might go back and try both sets together and make sure I hadn't gotten rusty on anything.
Wait, so
Then I
the
would
practice,
add a few more and so on. Yes,
so
Isaiah?
the practice test is just basically you just want us to like be comfortable with the like first of them, like first formulas and all that stuff, and then when we're comfortable with that, all those numbers, you want us to move on and keep going on to do them and turn
You
them in
should.
on Monday?
The real midterm will look like this. So be comfortable with as much of this as possible before Wednesday.
Yeah, I did like half of them, so I was just under. You said don't do all of them, so I was just. All right.
You could sit down and do the first half one sitting and the second half another sitting, if that's what fits you.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I have a question too. If we wanted to do a couple practice ones, is there a way the numbers will change, kind of like in the past?
Yeah, they always change. I've even made it so that the animals for 22 sometimes are dog breeds and sometimes are cats. Where's cat types? Random. Here, types of cats, right? And it's not always elves, dwarves, and gnomes. And it's not always wizards, barbarians, and rangers, to give you a little more variety. And the answer key reflects everything. So there's an achievement for planning 3 practice tests. So where is it? Schedule when you will take 3 practice tests. So if you know when you will do 3 of them, maybe you've done one since Monday, I don't know, let me know. Then you will get that checked off. If you think I'm going to do one Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, then ta-da, you've scheduled them. Tell me in private Zoom chat or something, and then I will know. Then after you take a practice test, if you make a study schedule and plan, then that's another achievement. I noticed I had trouble with the mortgage ones. I need to review that. I will do that 4 more times or something like that, right? So 2 easy achievements for things you'll be doing anyway. Okay, I'm going to go back to that later. I think we're ready to talk about standard deviation a lot. Does anyone have things before that transition? No. Okay, then off we go. So I'm looking at the practice test, numbers 20 and 21. Say, find the range of some numbers and find the standard deviation of them. So I reloaded it a bunch until I got some numbers that were easy to picture. And then we'll do more examples of this as needed. And my throat is scratchy, let me drink. The range for problem 20, that's your easy freebie points. It's just the highest minus the lowest, in this case, the 108 minus the lowest of 101. The fact that there's 2 101s doesn't matter. 8 minus 1 is 7. Yay, you get a point, right? That's to make up for the fact that 21 involves a fair amount of work. So overall, they're sort of average length test problems. If I want to find the mean of the data, then I'm going to add up those 4 numbers and divide by 4. We've been doing that a lot. You probably knew that before Math 105. If it helps you to have a picture, draw the number line. Put your things on the number line where they are, 2 101s, a 106, and a 108. And you can see that the mean looks like where it balances if it was a teeter-totter at a playground. Everyone okay with my setup? Okay, if the picture doesn't help you, don't worry about it. Next, I need to make a table. So I'm going to for each table have the data, or for each row I'll have the data, I'll have the distance from mean, and distance from mean is too much to write. So what's my fancy word that means distance from mean?
Deviation?
Deviation. Right? Which when I look at it isn't that much less writing, but oh well, I'm not in charge. And then I'm going to square the deviation. So 101, 101 again, 106, and 108. So how far is it from 104? I would not really write this much, of course. I am writing too much because I'm lecturing. Whoops, yellow was my color for mean. Okay, everyone okay so far? As I mentioned last time, if I tried to add up all my deviations, then I get 0. -6 and +6 cancel out. That's always going to be true because if my mean is where things balance on the teeter-totter, then how much they're on this side and how much they're on that side are going to be the same. The negative ones are always going to balance out the positive ones. So if I want to know how much deviation there is, I can't just add them up. So somebody historically had a choice. They could either take the absolute value of these and turn the negative ones positive and then add things up, or they could take the square of them, because when I take a negative number and multiply it by itself, that becomes positive. And they picked the square. And we'll talk about why they made that choice later. But for now, just keep it in the back of your head. When I add all those up, what do I get? 20, 29, 38. What I actually want to do, though, is make things similar to what happened up here. So if you like what's here, keep that on your page. I'm going to erase a little bit. So earlier, we found the average, the mean of the 4 data numbers themselves. Now we're finding the average a second time, but we're doing it of the squareds of the deviations. If you like the picture, we are stretching out the number line. We're making a number line that instead still has a spot for the mean, but it's how far we are away from the mean rather than what is the number itself. So these 2 points were 1, 2, 3 away, but we squared that and say they're 9 away. This number line compared to the green one is made out of rubber bands, and we're stretching it. And the farther away from the mean we go, the farther away, I should say like this is 0 away. The farther away we go, then the more the stretching happens. So this data point 106 was only 2 away. When we square it, it moves to 4 away, which is not as far as the 3s became 9s. And the 108 data point, that was 1, 2, 3, 4 away, it stretches all the way up to 16, quite a bit more. So if the picture helps you, there it is. If it doesn't, don't worry about it. I am going to actually shrink it because it's taking too much space on my screen. One thing to get out of the picture is that we've stretched things. So we need to unstretch them to be done. We don't have a reliable way to say how far things are away from the mean right now. One problem is that by squaring things, our measurement units have changed. That if we were measuring things in years or something like that, then squaring years doesn't make much sense. If we were measuring things in feet, square feet is a measure of area, not distance anymore. So we really messed things up. We're not in the same type of measurement unit that we used to be. So our final step is that we need to take the square root of that thing. My calculator is fussing about 9.5. About 3.08, so about 3.1. And that's what we'll call our standard deviation. And I'll try and make this slightly taller for the people who can't see the very bottom of the screen as well. Okay, your turn. Ask me lots of questions.
David, I was just going to ask you, I'm looking at my calculator, how do you find the square root of a number on our calculator?
So maybe hold up to your calculator so I see which one it is. It's the second function and then the x squared button. So go
Second function.
round second function, x squared button, and then something like 25 to make sure it turns into 5, or 9 to make sure it turns into 3.
Oh, let's see. So second function, and then the x2, or
you go to last class's Jamboard.
Got it. Okay, and I still need to do that. I apologize. I didn't want to ask any pre-existing questions, but I do have it now.
We spent plenty of time on that last time.
Okay,
it is a common thing. I even took a picture. Here it goes.
I'll be sure to watch. I see. Thank you. And now I feel a little bit out of the loop, but I appreciate you taking the time, and I will be sure to go over all that. Thank you.
Anyone else need calculator help? Anyone else have other questions on this?
Do we use range in figuring out standard deviation, or is just range figuring out just the range of the problem?
The second, correct. The range is its own thing. We don't actually care what the range is when we find the standard deviation. It is a silly enough little subtraction that I almost didn't put it on the test, but again, this is enough work that I sort of want it to be worth 2 points instead of 1, so the easiest way to do that is give you a freebie point.
Thank you.
There is something similar to standard deviation called root mean squared. So I'm going to write that out as words. So what this is the standard deviation for data with mean 0. Imagine I had some data set where when I made a histogram for it, then 0 was right in the middle, and I had bars like, that kind of thing. That looked like it might actually balance at 0. Anyway, ignore my hypothetical data. This may or may not actually be a histogram that has a mean of 0. But if there was negative and positive on the number line of the histograms axis, I said that wrong, on the axis of the histogram that is a number line, then the mean of 0 means we would call the standard deviation root mean squared. The phrase root mean squared is just describing what happens, that we squared the deviations, we found the mean of those squares, and then we take the root of that. So it's the root of the mean of the squares. When your data is balanced around 0, then you don't need this part. You don't actually have to find how far away from 0 they are, because that's just the numbers are how far away. Something on +3 is 3 away from the middle, because the middle is 0. Something on -4 is 4 away from the middle, because 0 is the middle. So when your data happens to be having an average of 0, then you call it root mean squared. We're not going to talk about that much, because when does that actually happen in Math 105 topics? But if it helps you remember the process, you can remember that name, root mean squared, because it certainly makes a lot more meaning than just the words standard deviation, which don't tell you much of anything. So maybe that helps. Are you ready for another example problem?
I'm up for it.
If not, then we will do this and you can work on the quiz. Oops, nope, that's the wrong thing. That's a 6-number data set. Yeah. I am not so mean that I'm going to make you find the standard deviation of 6 numbers. Okay, someone tell me what to do. Peek at page 3 if you need to.
For the range, you would subtract 139 by 100 and you would get 39.
Great.
And then for the next problem, you would first off find the mean, which you would add up 100 by 110 and 135 and 139, and then divide it by 4, which I have not done the calculations yet, but
121.
$121, someone said.
that's what I got too.
Okay. I'm just going to put a dashed box around that. That's an important number, but that's not our final answer. What's my next step?
And then you would, if we're going by the columns from the last problem, we would do a 3-column table and put the data in the left one, the deviation in the middle column, and then the deviation squared in the last column.
Numbers happen to be in order, but we're not doing a median. There's no need to sort anything if it was out of order. So that's going to be 21, 11, 14, and 18. Okay, next step.
You would then add the deviation squared and you'd get 1082.
I'm on purpose putting that as part of finding the means. Deviation. I don't think the dash S helps. That looks funny. Deviation squared. So 441. You don't have to write this much. Okay, and what did that turn out to be?
I got the 1082 or 270.5.
I'm getting about 16.4. So if this has meaning, we're saying that these four numbers, which are about 100 to 140, are centered at about 120. That sounds good so far. And sort of in general, in some sense of general or typical or something, they are about within 16 of 120. Should we do a third example, or is two of them enough of this process?
I think that was enough. That worked for me.
Okay, we probably will have time for more, but if no one's hollering, let me show you more about this last point I made. So I have three columns here. Column A says up at the top of my screen, rand between 1 and 10, which is a Google Docs command that just says, give me a random number between 1 and 10. And there are, oops, 1,000 columns or 1,000 rows in the spreadsheet. So we have 1,000 different random numbers between 1 and 10. Column B, its formula is find the maximum of the three numbers to the left and up. So it's asking a different question. If you were to roll 3 10-sided dice and pick the biggest one of the three, what would you get? My third column is what we have some data here for, but not a whole 1,000 pieces of data yet. So it's saying, what's the sum of the two most recent 10-sided die rules? Then slightly to the right of that, we have our histograms. Unsurprisingly, what do I roll in column A? Everything is about the same. I roll almost as many ones and tens. And I can do Control R and reload the page. And we're never perfectly fair with our luck. We're going to roll some numbers more than others, but this histogram tends to be fairly flat. Okay so far? For the
Hey,
second column.
David,
Mhm.
I just accidentally cleared the frame for one of the slides. I'm
Just
so
hit undo.
sorry.
So you have an
I don't have to be. I'm so sorry.
try and do your undo. If not, there's a chance I can go back in the recording and take a screenshot and stick it back on. But if you can undo, that's much easier. Okay,
I'm so sorry once again.
second histogram is this one. If I say, what's the highest of the three most recent die rolls? Unsurprisingly, the bigger numbers are represented more. And if I do Control R, then it's not always true that 10 is the most, but I certainly have a lot more of the big numbers than the small ones. I would have to roll 3 ones in a row in order for 1 to be the most common, the highest of the most recent 3. Why am I saying common? The highest of the recent 3. So this is very much skewed to the right. What's the highest of the 3 most recent numbers? Of course, the biggest numbers, oops, are going to happen more. What did I do? There we go. No. What is that about? Somebody is just typing something. Okay. Then the last histogram, what's the sum of 2 dice? 1,000 times. So I have all of my numbers, could be 2 to 20, because these are 10-sided dice, so we could get up to 20. And this one is much more shaped like a bell curve. On average, I'm going to get numbers that are about 10 and a half, 11, 12, something like that. And again, if I do Control R and reload more, sometimes I'm lucky high, sometimes I'm lucky low, but I have more or less a bell curve shape. Everyone okay with my histograms? So now I'm going to look at them. I ask how many data points are there? There's 1,000 different die rolls, but only 998 if I'm counting the top of the most recent 3. And one of them is excluded for the sum, so 999. I can find the mean, and I can find the standard deviation. What I have done here is just type out equals average, and then in parentheses, highlight that range, because a spreadsheet will do averages automatically. And for the standard deviation, I just put stdev, and then in parentheses, put that range, because it knows what stdev is supposed to do. For me, looking at these numbers with all the decimals is confusing. So I put an extra column where I just rounded these just so I'd have something to look at. But my math is actually going to use the ones that aren't rounded, of course. And I've put it then, what is the mean minus 2 standard deviations? So let me talk about that. I want to grab that and leave room on 5. If I undo 5, does anything happen? No. Okay. So I want one of that. And I want mean minus 1 standard deviation. And I want mean plus 1 standard deviation. And I want mean plus 2 standard deviations. And I want the histogram. So I'm making bins on these bins, like double layers of histogram bins. My mean was about 5.4, so I'll draw that in with this particular set of dice rolling. My mean was halfway between 5 and 6. Does that look like this side is balanced with that side? Yeah, my mean looks like it's doing its job. The mean minus 2 standard deviations is negative 0.5. The mean minus 1 standard deviation was 2.4. Oops. The mean plus 1 standard deviation is 8.4. And the mean plus 2 standard deviations was 11.4. So what we're interested in with these megabins, I have a megabin that is here, 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 and here, is how much of my data is in each megabin. And since my numbers are pretty much scattered evenly because they're just rolling a dice, then there's about the same number of things in each megabin. When I actually look at it, then between -2 and 1, so this bin, we had 226 things. The second one is between -1 and +1, so both of these bins combined. We had 566, about twice as many. And then the third category is between this standard deviation and this one. And we had about 208, so almost symmetric with that.
Why are the categories like that?
Why are they like that?
Yeah, why is one category two sections and the others are just one?
Okay, there is a theorem that says if you have a histogram that is a bell curve, when you actually observe the data, so they call this the empirical theorem, or the empirical rule, that 68% will be in that middle bin that's twice as wide. And if any escape these 4 bins, because you could have data out here or out here, then that's going to be 5% or less. So with our data that was actually shaped like a nice bell curve, when I do some Control R, then how far away from 68% are really in that middle bin? Only 2.9% error. If we rolled the dice more than 1,000 times, this number would shrink. We would observe it that it really would become true. Now let me get this one on the Jamboard. With this kind of thing, oh, I can't cover up my mean here. That I have these 3 bins, and that 68%, whoops, is in the middle bin. And if anything escapes those 3 bins, then the total on both sides that escape is less than 5%. And the power of this is I don't know how I got my histogram. Maybe I added up 2 dice. Maybe these are SAT scores, whatever it is. If I have a big enough sample size, then this will be true. 68% will be in this giant double bin between plus or minus standard deviation from the mean. Less than 5% will be way on the outskirts, and the rest will be evenly in those 2 bins. You could work out the numbers that add up to 100. If you think, some people call this the 68% rule, so that's why I'm emphasizing that. So if you have seen histograms for test scores, let me show you. So something like this, where what grade you get is predetermined. This might be an SAT or something like that, where before anyone takes this year's SATs, they already can say what is the score that you will be considered between low and average. What is the score that you will be considered between average and high? They know that from the past several years of SATs. They know that 68% of people will fit in this middle bin, and very few people will get a perfect score or an absolutely terrible score on the SATs. And then there's an even number that are above or below the 68% clump. So there is some predictive power to these bell curves. As a tangent, if anyone at LCC says they are grading you on a curve, then they're lying, right? No LCC class has enough students in it to make a nice bell curve shape. Even 1,000 summing up 2 dice didn't make a nice bell curve shape all the way. So when people say they're grading on a curve, they mean something else. You should ask your instructor, what do you mean by that? Because it doesn't mean I have so many tests like the SAT that I can have an accurate prediction of what your score will fit into which of these bins before I even assign this year's test, which is officially what the phrase grading on a curve means. I said I would explain before, why did we use squares? Why not just absolute value? It's to make this work. That we wouldn't get our 68% rule if we were basing our standard deviations on the absolute value of the deviation rather than squaring it. So making this kind of graph, as you see, is way too much work. I can't ask you to do this on a test. But I encourage you to go to the spreadsheet, which is the same one that has all our other garbage on it from describing data. You're all editors. You can hit Control-R, not during class, and see that how far away from a 68% this data actually is will be small for the bell curve and kind of jump all over the place for the other 2. And the one that's very skewed, it's going to be worse than the one that's kind of flatly distributed. Would you expect that 68% of flat data is in the middle? Probably not. Right? It's going to be all over the place. Why would more than half of it be in the middle? But with a bell curve, that makes sense. So if you take a statistics class, then you'll do a little bit more with this because there's subtleties. When I looked in the official rules for finding standard deviation, there's this bizarre thing. When we're doing this division, divide by how many if the number of data is a whole population, but divide by n-1 if the data is a sample. a sample meaning not the complete population? What if I was just looking at some of my die rolls instead of all of them? For some reason, I divide by n minus 1 instead of n then. And the statistics class will get into that. There's also questions of how close to a bell curve do we have to be? If I'm doing research on the pandemic and I want to know if my vaccine is effective for most people or so on, then what kind of issues of taking a sample will make it that my 68% rule is reliable? And what kind of actually doing statistics in real life makes this not reliable? But for 105, you only have two chores. One is to actually, with just a few numbers, go through this process, get your standard deviation. And the other is just a vague understanding in the back of your head that if I was to take a statistics class, I would learn more about this, that things clump up in the middle with a bell curve. The size of that clump I can predict. Size of the clump I can predict. And it doesn't matter where this bell curve comes from, if it's SAT scores or dice or gambling or weather that happens to clump like this, it's still going to behave the same way, which is kind of amazing. So if you're good with those things, ta-da, good enough on standard deviation. Questions about any of that? Let me ask one. How big are these sections going to be then? If this is about 10% and this is 68%, how much is left over?
11.
Yeah. If you are very busy, then your job before the midterm is to practice things with this slide, because this is what I'm actually asking you to do. The rest, you could just watch this lecture again before your statistics class to get these issues back in your brain.
Are we doing it the same way as we did the last one, where we'll go in and we'll do have an hour again, and then we'll grade ourselves and all that like we did last time? Is that what we agreed on?
Yes, there's some people that it was just a little too hectic. So I've talked with those people as far as I know. Let me know if you need to be included. And they're going to just do it by themselves. I will put them in their own Discord breakout room so you can get my help. And I'll check in every now and then. But while everyone else is doing group work, then you can be by yourself. I'm not forcing group work on you. But for most people, they like the group work. Is there anyone where the first midterm was like the best day of class up to that point?
I really enjoyed the first class of general.
I liked it too. It was very less stressful than any other test I've taken. So
Yeah, I liked it as well.
So for most of us, it'll be exactly the same. I've gotten a little better with breakout rooms in Zoom. If you want to do that, we can. I still have the text from last midterm in the Discord because it doesn't go away. So if I should get rid of it, let me know, but it can just live there. That's fine. So yeah, same format. The only trickiness is that next Wednesday, we don't have class Monday because it's President's Day. So keep in touch, I'm not dismissing you, but keep in touch, use the Get Help forum. That will help make a sense of togetherness, but we really have a whole week where you're just doing 2 practice midterms or more, and then showing up to see how you do. And I will send out a PDF that morning, just like I did last time. I will try, I might even do it Tuesday night I don't know if anyone runs to work in the morning on Wednesday and has trouble printing things before you get home. I don't want to time crunch where you get home from your morning job and have to eat lunch and print something out just to be in class. So, but don't peak early. There's no advantage to that. Be fair to your classmates.
No, can we also can go back and like say like if we didn't finish all the playgrounds and stuff or we're still working on one, we can go back and we can do all that too still, right? And still get
Yep.
all that work done.
Yes, I'm about to transition to playgrounds because that's the other thing for today. So if we need me to do one more of these, I can. We're not out of time. If you would all be bored, then I won't do another one. And what else was I going to say? Sharing a playground is something we need to do. The activity, that was it. This week's activity is just one of these, but with more things. You might want to make a spreadsheet to do the work for you, because that's an awful lot of adding things up and divide by how many. But this table should now look very familiar. Here's my data values, then I have the deviations, and then I have the square root of the deviations. And as always with the activities, there's an answer key, so you can see how you did, and so on. So if you want to really convince yourself you're on top of it, try the week 6 activity.
David, when we finish Math 105, will we still have access to your website?
Yes, that's one reason it's not a Moodle class. But what I need to do, as I've planned out, is take the typicality and bell curve portions of personal finance, which are important, because if you're going to say how much does the average family need to save for retirement, we need to know what an average is and just how typical things are. But I should peel that off and up here at the top, make a second, an extra whole topic just on the describing data stuff. So it will look a bit different because I need to put in this future planning section, put in a bunch of stuff that you saw kind of for the first time as homework, and that wasn't necessarily the best way to learn it, was to have homework thrown at you.
Yeah, because I'm definitely one of those people that are moving on to 243, which is stats and probability. So it'll be helpful to me to review this material.
So I'm going to take these nice pictures from the homework and stuff and make another section of the website that goes through it more carefully. Thank you again for being my guinea pigs in 105. Okay, so I guess, what else was there? I had opened this. Remember the formula pages here? You might want to have a copy of that printed out if you don't already. And when you're grading yourself, you'll be grading out of 24, even though there's 27. So you get 3 to skip.
Can I ask a question about negative range?
Sure.
So it's not a good idea to have negative range, although I seem to remember in 95 that we did have a range that included negative numbers. So I'm confused by that. And then as I'm looking at week 6, the quiz, the number 3 is write a list of data whose range is greater than its highest value. And without a negative number, I'm just don't understand how that's possible.
Okay, let's look at that.
Okay.
Can a range be negative? So if I had some data that was positive and some data that was negative. So what's my range here?
Three? Because if you have a -6 plus 9.
Isn't it 15 because it's on the number line?
Subtracting negative that makes it bigger.
Okay, I was looking at as taking a 9 and then subtracting the, okay, no, I understand.
So our range is going to be positive, even if we have negative things.
Okay. So as long as you don't have all negatives,
Right,
then you're good to go. But you can have a mix of negatives.
right. If we had all negatives,
Mm-hmm.
then our biggest one here is now -2. Well, that's still going to turn out to be positive. I need to make these bigger numbers. Let's see. No, I think it's just going to be positive because this number is going to push the negative bigger. I think my range is always positive.
Thank you.
Okay, only one person used the share about your playground in the discussion forum, which is great. If you don't want to say things during class time, then now you can just type up a little bit and not have to be on stage. But otherwise, let me open it up. Who has worked on a playground and wants to share about things during class? About what you did.
I can share mine. I showed you mine, but I could share it with the class.
Okay, do you want to share screen or do you want just to talk about things?
Yeah, I can share it.
Okay, I will stop sharing so you can. Do you want me to stop the recording?
Do what you want.
I'm happy to keep recording if you don't mind being
Okay.
in a place no one ever looks at.
Oh no. Okay. Oop. That one. So you guys can see that, I think. It should be like a
I can
Google
see it.
spreadsheet. Okay.
Yes, we can see it.
All right. So yeah, I did the budgeting comparison one, and because I am currently planning a wedding, you know, that was a great way for me to sort of get a lot of my own planning out there, and also just a good idea of like other things I should be looking at that I was missing out on. So this is like the average wedding. It said on the comparison playground page that the average is about $30,000, which is just wow. And I tried to average that out. I did a lot of researching and just finding the average prices for each of these things and just trying to get as close as possible. And it actually went a little over 30,000 and is probably closer to 40,000, but that's about what it came out to there. And then for the budget wedding, I'm having a much smaller wedding. It's not going to be nearly as many people. I tried to average all of these prices out to like if you were having about 150 guests for both of these. But I already know of a lot of cheaper alternatives. So I was able to get, you know, simpler menus. That's a lot cheaper, or like not doing an open bar, not hiring a DJ. I was kind of silly in some parts of it. Doing things secondhand or doing DIY. And it was a lot cheaper. It was closer to about $12,000 to $13,000, still within the 150 guests. And so that was really informative for me, and I actually had a pretty good time doing it.
Thanks for sharing.
My standard bit of wedding planning advice is if you have to pick between a great photographer and great flowers, then prioritize the flowers, because so-so pictures of amazing flowers are better than really great pictures of so-so flowers. And my wife's advice is to consider wearing ballet slippers instead of shoes, because no one can see your feet anyway.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I might show up in sneakers. No one ever sees the shoes.
Okay, anyone else want to share I'm going to put a thank you, Lacey, in. Okay, anyone else want to share and say what they've done?
I'll have to email you because I'm still working on it. I'm going to be doing,
Okay.
I think it's like 2 of them for the 2 achievements.
I'm not sure what my Monday will look like, but I might email you that I can spare half an hour. And if people just want to show up on Monday and share these things with each other, we could do that. There's the Saturday study group as usual at 9 p.m. Did people want me to do an overview of these again because it's been a while or they weren't here that class?
I wouldn't mind that.
Okay. So this is instead of a class project, your formal class project, if you were in a Math 105 class from another instructor, would be this Math in My Life playground. But trying to be more playful than that, here's a bunch of other options. So graph theory talks about vertices and edges and what kinds of things you can learn from those.
David, do you need to share your?
Oh, I need to share my screen. Yes, let me back up and start over with that. Okay, so kind of the formal class project that other Math 105s do is this Math in My Life playground with the coffee cup symbol. So if you want to be very structured, you can do that, but that's not as fun as the others. So starting at the top, graph theory is about vertices and edges and what we can learn from that. And the fact that there is math that doesn't have arithmetic is news to many people. I'm not sure why this isn't taught in elementary school. It is fun. Little kids can handle it. And then at the very end, you get this kind of aha moment about why would we care about this? But I'm not going to spoil it. The second one that some people think is fun is these voting paradoxes, that if you want to know what most people want, then it's often very hard to do things. Do I just give people one vote? Do I just say, what's your first, second, third choice? No matter how I phrase this, some people are going to feel disenfranchised by the voting. So maybe there's some way to modify first, second, and third choices. So this is actually impossible. Kenneth Arrow has what's called the Arrow's Impossibility Theorem, named after him, that any voting system can work badly sometimes. You can never make a voting system that will reliably make everyone always feel like they are represented. And there's some YouTube videos that explain why that is. So since elections were in the news, then I made that up last term as a way to see what math has to say about the whole issue of voting. The third one is hard. Clocks and codes is by far the most math intense of these playgrounds. You get to talk about modulo arithmetic and modern codes, and there's exponents and things like that. But by the time you're done, then it's actually telling you how it is your cell phone can send encoded messages. And even if you're on Comcast or LCC Wi-Fi, those places can't read your texts. So there we go. The person who wrote in the sharing playground did the beauty contest. Here's 10 links to 10 different elegant or beautiful explanations of ideas. So which of these 10 ideas do you think would win a beauty contest if there was such a thing? And they are all at least slightly mathematical in nature. Error propagation is an important idea just because in real life, we don't know our numbers very well. if I'm planning a trip and how many miles is it to Chicago and what price will I pay for gas, I don't know exactly the mileage. And certainly the gas station prices are going to change as I drive. So I'm going to use some numbers in that math, but they're not reliable. So what happens if I take some numbers, the middle of this picture being sort of the real numbers, if we knew them, and made them bigger or smaller? Some of them a lot bigger, some of them a little bigger. And then I plug in plus or minus or divide or subtract in these gray boxes going up and down in the middle of the column and see how my answers change. So this playground is purposefully taking numbers like 10 and 12 and making them bigger and smaller, trying the different kinds of arithmetic, and which kinds of arithmetic get the most messed up by having the numbers off. And if you know that, then that can be a little helpful in real life. Yes, I don't know the actual price I'll pay for gas during my road trip, but even if it's off by 5 or 10%, because I'm doing this kind of arithmetic, I'll still be okay. Versus, oh, I'm doing this other kind of arithmetic, my answers are just not worth thinking about at all, because the error will propagate in a way that blows it up out of proportion. There's a famous comic, XKCD, if you know of that. So he wrote one about this, that which things, when you put in precise numbers and garbage, do you get out precise numbers or garbage? The comparison is what Lacey did, or a vacation or a wedding. Plan one that has the average cost per person for the country and then a budget version and make the comparison. Grocery shopping is not much to say with instructions, but keep track of a month's spending at a grocery store. Maybe you've done this already. Then break down your list of items by category: dairy, produce, meat, beverages, blah, blah, blah. And then at the end, visit some grocery stores and price the items on your list at each store and see what you learn. This was inspired by one student I had several years ago whose husband kept yelling at her, "Why are you shopping at this store? You should go to Fred Meyer instead," or something like that. So she found out exactly which types of groceries were cheapest at which stores, and then could say, okay, you're right. If I really wanted only something, I don't know, frozen foods, then I should go to this store. But on average, we're saving money with the store I like, and I don't have to drive as much. So there we go. So more bookkeeping, but not really much math to it there. Renting versus buying. Is it better to rent a house or buy a house? This was again based on a past math student's project. This was in a fall term class, and she hated going home for the one discussion at Christmas time where a certain relative would always say, "Why are you still renting? You're throwing money down the drain." And she was pretty sure as a single mom that she should be renting, and buying a house was the wrong thing. So she used her Math 25 project to actually do the research. So I lead you through all the things to think about. If you're interested in social justice, the film Segregated by Design talks about how the mostly federal, but some smaller governments have really caused injustice that has a lasting legacy based on housing issues. So that's my little bit of social justice in the math projects. And then we get to here. The last two about comparing people's foot size and does that predict their height, or challenge your classmate to a math duel. Those are harder to do remotely. If we were all getting together in a physical room, you could connive some of your classmates to hang out for 5 minutes after class and measure their feet size and height. But that might be hard to do if you're living by yourself now. Okay, I will stop sharing and probably forget I've stopped sharing. If most of us are done, then I will just share again and put the practice midterm up on the board and work on questions for the next 20 minutes. Are there things people want to do other than that?
I have a question about the quiz. So where is that? Is it on the Jamboard now?
Yes, it's on the Jamboard now, the second page. So I will send a reminder in the after class email about that. In fact, I can even take a screenshot of it right now. You want me to share my screen or do you got it on yours?
Go ahead and share it. That'd be great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
David, can I ask a question about one of the playgrounds?
Sure.
The clocks and codes playground. And so I'm just doing a quick read through, or a quick scan rather, and it looks really interesting, but I'm not seeing what it is that you want what you would want me to do.
It is a lot more of just absorb all this information that's thrown in.
Okay.
So you don't actually do much until you get down to
it's super interesting stuff.
Yeah, so it's only when we get to actually at the end of this, right, almost at the bottom.
Decoding a modern code, okay.
Then you can kind of work out your own.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone want to holler with a practice midterm question to do?
I'm personally not very good at the problem solving section, even though it's top and it should be like probably something I'm more comfortable with, but I'm just not.
Oh, okay, should we just start at number 1?
I'm open to anybody who has any other problems with 1 through 4. Whatever helps the class as a whole.
Does someone want to do a problem on the board because they haven't done 2 yet and want to lead me through what to write?
I guess I can do it. Or I can lead you.
Okay, thank you, Pam.
So it's only finding the percent increase for the second day, right? So you would take 103 minus 92.
Okay, so you have 92 and it goes up to 103. And we can say, that's a difference of 11.
And then the percent change, it would be, or the increase divided by original. So you take that 11 and divide it by the 92. And I'm getting, rounding it up is so it's 0.119. So rounding it up is 0.12. And then if you move the decimal point over, it's about 12%.
Okay. So for this problem, we're getting that answer. You want to keep going or let someone else take over?
Where'd you get the 11% increase?
You subtract the 92 from the 103.
Okay.
This is an $11, not an 11.
Oh, okay.
And I can't keep going unless somebody else wants to take over. I'm good with either.
Okay, I guess a 2.
Yeah. So you'd still, since it's the same number, you'd still be, it'd still be $11 change, but then you would be dividing it by the original that you got the second day. So you'd be dividing it by the 103.
2 L's.
And for that, I got 0.1067. So again, rounding it up, it's 0.11 or around 11%.
Thank you. Great work.
Thank you for that, Pam.
Yeah.
I think the answer key, by the way, says that this is negative 11% because it's a decrease, but that's more of a matter of English than math. Are you phrasing it as it went up a negative amount or that it went down a positive amount? They both make sense. So any of that can work. Okay. Next problem. While I'm waiting, I'll just share again the reminder, you don't have to do your practice tests by yourself. I think if Julie and Melanie and Pamela all did one together, then they can just turn in one thing saying, here is what we did together.
When is the practice test due again?
It'll be Wednesday of next week because we don't have a class on Monday.
Do you think we could possibly go over one of the questions for finance? Because I'm still really confused on how to do those.
Sure. The first part with mortgage or the second part with the formulas?
Like the first part, because like how the loan has 3% fee. Like, how do you do that?
Okay, let's just do all of those. Okay, so 8%, 25 years. I am looking at this number in the table. So we're finding a home size that's about how many times does $7.72 fit in 620? And I'm getting about 80. each of those 80s is $1,000 a loan. So she can afford about an $80,000 house. She's actually going to get a mortgage for less than that because we're assuming in these scenarios that she doesn't have her down payment just handy. And she's going to have some financial responsibility to scrounge up the down payment and pay back her relative or her retirement fund or something. So what is 23% of means multiply the 80,000. So 18,400. Now, number 7 is tricky because we've skipped some stuff. So let's look at what we need for number 7. So what we're going to ask is not 23% of the home size, but 3% of the mortgage amount. So how much was actually the mortgage? We need to figure that out. Oops. I did not make it do that. Okay, so mortgage size. That's going to be the size of the home minus the down payment. So 61,600. So now I'm ready to do this one. I have my 0.03 for my 3% of means multiply, and I know what the mortgage size is. I should label things better. So far, so good.
Yes.
Then the last part, part of the last part. So she was 8% and 25 for that. So the mortgage was this 61,600. So that becomes 61,400 0.6 thousands of loan. And what I've done is scoot the decimal 3 places. So that when I was counting by a comma, I put a period there. I'm saying how many thousands were there? There's 61.6 thousands there. For each of those, she had to pay $772 a month. So 475.56. That's less than her budget, which is good. Remember from way back at the beginning, she budgeted 620. So she's paying less so she can pay that down payment back. We're not done though. So how many will she pay over 25 years? Every month she gets out her checkbook and that's the check she writes. So how often does that happen? Tell me if I'm too close to the bottom of your screen because I'm towards the bottom of my slide. She'll do it 12 months each year. And she'll do it for 25 years. So 142,668. Okay, good so far? Then the last part, how much of that is interest? Well, she wrote checks for the 142,668. The actual mortgage was 61,600. So anything that wasn't paying back that mortgage must be interest. So 81,068. And as I misspoke last time, the farther we go with years, the more interest there will be. So it's not surprising that with a 25-year loan, pretty far with lots of years, then the interest is more than the actual mortgage amount. Okay, was that good enough for 5 through 9?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it is 3:50. And I have one person that wants to chat about grades and stuff afterwards. So anything quick, otherwise we'll be done. Have a good week. Maybe see you Saturday. Maybe I will drop by the other 2 study sessions. We'll see how family and kids go. Thank you all for being here.
See you Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.